So hello everybody and welcome to a new video with a Q&A. It has been a long time since I've done the latest Q&A and there is a pile of questions waiting for me to answer them. So with the new schedule, monthly schedule, 2-month schedule that we have on the channel is slowly I should say, heading in the kind of new direction I really like. So we find some time from time to time to do some Q&A. Before I go into 3 questions of today, I want to answer something else. I'm going to visit Lorenz Gadient, you know, the author of the book Takt and Pendelsschlag, the man behind the double beat theory. We're going to translate this book into English, publish that, surrounded with a kind of interactive new way of approach. But we're going to visit him. Anya, me and the kids have a few days off at the end of the month. And certainly the reason of that visit is obviously to prepare for the coming months to the publication of the book and also to see if we can collaborate, Lorenz and I, here on the channel. Also on the mailing list, he will be writing regular blog posts for the mailing list, not making videos obviously. So if you're interested in that, there is a link below to opt in for the mailing list and you get the 360 somewhat pages free ebook for free. So that might be a good idea, but I would like to have your questions take with me to Ingolstadt, where he lives, just to ask him the answers for that. I know it is, I don't like the term controversial as a subject, but the double beat metrical approach for the metronome numbers and the French pendulum notations is something few people have given a real thought, so it changes quite a lot. So I can imagine that many questions come up. If we can come up with an answer that answers your question, that would be great. So that's for that. So now let's head over to selection of 3 questions, and there are some other waiting for next Q&A. First question comes from Jack Hausman, and he writes, "Hello Wim, hoping this finds you and yours well. Are you from the Netherlands, and if so, which canton?" I'm not from the Netherlands, from Belgium, but for the northern part of Belgium, so we speak basically the same language as in the Netherlands, but it's Belgium. And secondly, that's his question, is any forearm weight used in playing the clavichord and harpsichord, or is playing done with only the fingers? Also on the fortepiano. Thanks and keep up your great work. So Jack, that's a great question, and in fact we are addressing this on the channel quite a lot. Certainly during the live streams. Remember the symphonias I did before Christmas, so last year. We are now heading more to a kind of masterclass series in which the use of the arm, finger and the wrist is actually being addressed a lot. And it's very, very important, not only for playing clavichord, it's essential for playing clavichord. Without the correct use of arm weight, you wouldn't be able to produce a sound. So just with your fingers, yeah, it's difficult for me to do it wrong, but it would produce only a very awkward, weird sound. So it's really necessary on clavichord to use your arm weight in a very good way. Secondly, it's important for any other keyboard instrument. Harpsichord, pianoforte, modern piano, even if you would play a synthesizer, it makes a huge difference. So I consider it as a basic technique for keyboard. Use of the arm, not only the forearm, but the complete arm, having it very relaxed. Try to find ways to relax it. And just to say this, I've been asked a lot about these kind of things, so I will address this as good as I can in some future videos, but I will be making also a course on this. Maybe 10 basic keyboard techniques. It may be a little bit overdone on this YouTube channel to explicitly or exclusively talk for a whole series only on basic keyboard techniques, but I will address this in an online course that will be available in a few weeks or months. If you want to stay updated of that, again, the mailing list is the place to be. It's the best way, it's the easiest way for me to update you on that. So, but for now, the use of the arm weight, try to find ways to really control that. And the first thing to do is really relax your whole arm. That's the key to everything. So just have your arm next to your body, very relaxed. And then the key is to transfer that arm weight really from this position, the rest very relaxed, onto the key. And that's not easy. Again, I will address it in some videos and certainly in that course. But only arm weight, of course, is not making sound. It's just like you could put an elephant's foot on the clavichord, would destroy the instrument, but it wouldn't make it sound. So it's a combination of arm weight. It's really heavy. If I want to lift my hand out of the key now, it's really heavy. Maybe I shall take something to give you an idea how heavy it is. Wait a second. So modern technology on the clavichord. It's maybe not the best position. I can give you an indication. It's in milliliters. It should be in kilos. There it is in gram. So if I would put my arm full weight on this, it's 1.6 kilos. So that's really the weight you need, and it will be probably a little bit more just on the keyboard. The trick is, and that's difficult, to lift your arm out of the key again without being fixed. So then comes the finger in action. The finger speed actually is giving the touch, it's giving the articulation in combination with the arm weight. And then the transfer of the arm weight by use of the wrist to next keys. Again, this is something that's basic keyboard technique that would make the lives of so many keyboard players so much easier. So not playing with a fixed wrist. Again, I will be making some videos and a course on that. I think it's necessary, and the online course I think would be the best way for me to serve you in the best way I can. So next question comes from George Hubbock, and he asks that he's playing the third part Sinfonias of Bach, and then he says the short key heads of his Silbermann clavichord are very shallow, and means that I have to be very careful about fingering. I'm having trouble fully understanding in scale passages a 3/4 right hand going up, left, it means so the so-called old fingering. I know that the Brahmsian legato is not wanted, but we do need cantabile. I seem to be getting bumps. I'm trying to have the hand facing in the direction we're going and trying to minimize the wrist movement. Perhaps I'm trying too hard for legato, and if the phrasing occurs in pairs 3/4, 3/4, 3/4, maybe that's what's needed. I try to use the very front of the keys, obviously for the shorter fingers. I feel that the instrument itself teaches what it wants and we have to listen to it, but I'm finding this a difficult new trick for an old dog to learn. Any advice would be much appreciated before I start a real onslaught on Sweeling and the Virginalists. Many thanks, George. So George, thank you for the question. It's a great question. I think a lot of people struggle, so to say, with the 3/4, 3/4 in combination with music of Bach and related music of that time. And so let me address that in two ways. First, at the end of the 17th century, beginning of the 18th century, things change. And we might look back from now to the past. That's what we do. That's inevitable. Everybody does it. We cannot put ourselves in a time machine and go before Bach and then travel back. So we have a look from perspective from this time. And sometimes we just mix things that were old-fashioned already in Bach's time with the music of Bach. So the use of the 3/4, 3/4 is maybe more to the 17th, 16th century than maybe in Bach's time. It was still in use though. It was changed because of mainly two reasons. And C.P.E. Bach talks about that in his book. He even, and I think it's a little bit exaggerated, maybe he didn't know or was not historically too interested. He says that this new way of fingering, using the first finger, the thumb, which replaces basically playing of scaling up with 3/4, 3/4, was kind of invented by his father and was a long kept secret within the Bach family. But obviously there is no doubt in my mind that Bach learned about this in northern Germany when he was there in Lüneburg and visited people like Böhm and Reinken and later Buxtehude. All those people, they upgraded the keyboard technique in a way that they needed to have a kind of what we would call modern fingering with use of the thumb. But because remember this, people at around 1700 wanted to play in more and more keys. So you can play a scale in C major, 3/4, 3/4. It's no problem. But if you would go to F sharp minor, it's almost impossible. It can be done, but it's really awkward. So suddenly with new chords and things like that, the use of the thumb became more and more important. And secondly, and that's maybe more towards Bach himself and the area of the period around Bach, that the cantabile style of playing became more and more important, and that's directly related also to the use of the unfretted clavichord. So where the 3/4, 3/4, and you answered partly in your own mail your question, when you use that fingering, it's inevitable that you have a slight, small articulation. You will never find a way to use a 3/4, 3/4 in a very legato cantabile style. And indeed, that articulation is wanted because in the music of Sweelinck and that kind of period, so way before the 18th century, the articulation gave the accents on an organ. That's what you do on a harpsichord. That's also what you do. It's also by timing, but maybe that's another issue, another subject. But the articulation gives inevitably an accent, but that's wanted. So if you apply the fingering correct, you have the right accents. But going more legato style, more and more cantabile, of course, you use another kind of fingering, and that's also in Bach's music. So applying the 3/4, 3/4 old fingering, which is kind of wrong name because the so-called modern fingering is also early fingering, but used by Bach and after that always, is maybe a modern fingering at the time for a modern instrument like the clavichord was. Remember, you had a change in instruments. The recorder went to the flute traverse, the virginal, the spinet, harpsichord maybe. I don't know if it was used a lot of solo instrument because it's very big, very expensive, but those types of instruments to the clavichord, later pianoforte, more cantabile instruments with a dynamic range possibility of making accents in an other way than just by articulation. So again, that's in a nutshell an answer to your question. So don't try too hard to implement this more 17th century fingering in Bach's music, because certainly with the sinfonias you will need a more modern fingering, the use of the thumb. So we could dive into this in several layers for days even, because it touches upon again the keyboard technique, basic keyboard techniques. But I think for now, go ahead with the sinfonias and try to use a little bit different fingering. We have done extensive live streams on the sinfonias. They're all on the YouTube channel in a playlist, so maybe you can check them out. And then a last question of today. It's asked actually a long time ago by Adrian Leal. I hope I pronounce your name correct. And it's also a question that has been asked quite a lot. Just found your channel. I was trying to find videos explaining on the true art of keyboard playing. It's the book by C.P. Bach. As someone who is an absolute beginner on keyboard, what would you recommend I read? You have such a wonderful channel and I'm a huge fan of all German music. I hope one day I can listen to Wagner's operas without English subtitles. Thanks in advance. Well, I will be making a video soon, I believe next week, somewhere on where to start on historical facts. It's a common question. It's huge. You can start at so many places. If you would have to pick one book pointing to sources, theoretical sources, I definitely would recommend Leopold Mozart's Grundliche Violinschule. It's also available in English. You can buy it. I don't think you can download it in English, but anyway, it is not so expensive. The German version, of course, you can download all editions even from this, but of course you have to deal with the typical Gothical letter type. But once you can get used to that. But Leopold Mozart is not keyboard playing, it's violin playing, but he is talking from a perspective of a real life musician. He's covering some theory, but he's giving a lot of feedback, personal thoughts from his personal experience as a player, giving very practical examples, and even is talking about things that are very difficult to write down or certainly not to be scheduled. So you will find a lot about performance. It's written, it's not too long, it's written in a style, we've talked about that, it's not like we would do it today, very schematic, but you can read it just sitting in your couch, and you will be immersed in a kind of a very 18th century style of writing, but also playing. The fact that he is talking about performances often is of course something you can benefit from as a keyboard player as well. Violin tend to be very dynamic instruments, as the clavichord is, as the pianoforte is. So a lot of those issues can be translated to the keyboard playing as well. And the fact that certainly for young Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, his father was his teacher, obviously. Don't forget, Leopold Mozart was a great teacher, maybe also a great musician. We tend to forget that. He's in the shadow of his son, obviously, but this is what young Wolfgang no doubt had to learn and learn. That was his system. So that's you get on top, and it's very nice reading this book. So that is something I would recommend starting with. So again, that's for today Q&A. I thank you for your questions. There are questions waiting for an answer. I will address them in future Q&As. They will not be scheduled as the other videos, so they will randomly be uploaded once a month, 2 times a month. We'll see how that goes. If this is your first time here on Authentic Sound, I'd love to have you subscribe. We have regular projects on composers, on pieces, live streams. If you want to be notified for the live streams, there's no better way than to subscribe to the channel, for which I would thank you, and hit the bell icon next to the subscription button. That allows you to set your notification system either by mail or push notification on your mobile. So every time we go live, you will receive a notification by YouTube, and the live streams are generally a great way to interact with each other, and we're going to expand that as well. Anyway, thank you for watching, sharing this video with your friends, and we see each other very soon again. Bye.